Hi, this is Bob with Thrive Wellness, and thank you for joining me for this discussion on mindful eating, adopting a healthier relationship with food. Here's a look at our agenda for this discussion. So, we will define mindfulness. We will take a look at the specific principles of mindful eating. We'll dive into our emotional attachment with food and how that impacts our food choices and how much we eat. We'll look also at methods we can use to better gauge our level of hunger. We'll take a look at mindful eating in practice if it's done well. We'll also talk through controlling your eating environment, which can be important. And then, if you're interested in mindful eating and want to get started, what do I do next? The principles of mindful eating stem from the broader practice of mindfulness. The exercise of mindfulness is used for stress reduction, controlling anxiety, and helping to bring about a relaxed state. Being present in the moment, pushing out of conscious mind the stressors of the day, concerns about bills or deadlines. With mindfulness, your attempt is at being fully aware of your environment, your feelings, and your senses, bringing focus to your breathing, and just simply accepting the here and now. At its core, mindfulness is really a type of meditation. Practicing mindfulness involves various breathing methods, sometimes guided imagery, and other practices that just help to relax the body and the mind and reduce stress. We can use some of the basic foundations of mindfulness to improve eating habits. Mindful eating isn't necessarily a diet or a specific pattern of eating in the sense that we think of dieting. Maybe I'm doing a low carb diet or following vegetarian pattern of eating or Mediterranean or DASH diet, for instance. Mindful eating is more about controlling behavior and habits related to eating. So, regardless of what your personal philosophy is with respect to your food choices, mindful eating practices can be beneficial, even if your diet quality is relatively poor. Mindful eating can help you reduce how much food you eat and to help you make better choices overall. Let's talk through some of the benefits of mindful eating. So, those who practice mindful eating often experience reduced anxiety and stress about food. Again, mindful eating is not counting calories or carbs or being particularly strict about food choices. It's more about working to implement strategies that help you control how much you're eating and to make better decisions along the way. But even if you do make a poor decision or falter on a general goal, you don't beat yourself up and you focus on making better decisions with your next meal or snack. Those following mindful eating practices often experience improved digestion because you're eating less food overall and you're making better decisions about what you're eating, when you're eating, and how much you're eating. Improved appetite control is also a benefit of mindful eating through employing various techniques that help you be more in tune with your hunger and satiety. With mindful eating, it's very common to have greater enjoyment of your meals because the focus is on your meal and is on enjoying your food, and you're separating out all of the distractions so that you can focus on the here and now. Now, mindful eating isn't necessarily driven around making better nutrition choices, but if your overall goals are trying to eat healthier, by utilizing techniques in mindful eating, that can certainly help someone support healthier food choices as well. And because of all these benefits and the non judgmental focus of mindful eating, individuals that practice mindful eating often have an improved relationship with food. In a moment, we're going to talk through the principles of mindful eating, but right now, I want you to take a moment and think of an example of mindless eating. That way, we can really start out with a point of differentiation between mindless eating and mindful eating. So there are many different examples of mindless eating. I'm sure you thought of some of them, maybe eating in front of a television, eating while driving, eating while working. And the idea is there that we're distracted and we're not focused on how much we're actually eating. We likely eat more. Some other examples, maybe eating when you're not even hungry, eating out of boredom, emotional eating, stress eating, just having a general lack of awareness about how much you're eating. Maybe you're eating directly out of a bag of potato chips, for instance, or not focusing at all on portion sizes. So many different examples of mindless eating. But now let's talk through some of the examples of the principles of mindful eating. Let's talk through the principles of mindful eating. So we can have an emotional connection to food that can become unhealthy. And mindful eating is about recognizing food and mood connection. So hopefully in those moments we can make better decisions. Mindful eating requires paying attention to your hunger and satiety cues. And by doing so, that can help us eat less food overall. Much of the behavioral changes that make up mindful eating help support efforts to slow down the eating process when we eat. So again, we can recognize when we're full so we can stop sooner. With mindful eating, we're going to make peace with the food that we choose. We're going to try to make healthier choices, but even if our choices aren't the best in that moment, we're going to accept them, and we're going to continue to practice mindful eating with that next snack or meal. We're going to respect our bodies. Chances are you're making some dietary change or choosing to use mindful eating techniques because you want to be healthier. So focus on the desire to be healthier. Take note of especially how you feel after meals, both the good ones and the bad ones. Connecting food and mood. I think we kind of alluded to this in the previous slide, but we don't always eat just to satisfy physical hunger. It is common to use food for comfort, stress relief, or as a reward. But when food becomes the primary coping mechanism, that is when an unhealthy cycle begins between our stress, craving unhealthy foods, and giving in to those cravings. Recognizing your source of hunger. So let's define and differentiate the difference between these two forms of hunger. So with physical hunger or physiological hunger, this is hunger and eating that satisfies the body's need for energy and for nutrients. Emotional or stress hunger is hunger that arises due to stressful situations, emotions, and at that time, we turn to food for comfort, support, or as a reward. In this next slide, we'll look at some specific differences between these two hungers and how we experience them. So again, with mindful eating, it's important to be very in tune to the connections between food and mood. So are you hungry because of a physiological need, or are you hungry because of some emotional or stress situation? So let's take a look at some characteristics between emotional hunger and physical hunger. With emotional hunger, your hunger comes on very suddenly, usually due to some specific stressor or emotional state. With physical hunger, your hunger comes on kind of gradually over the period of a couple of hours. With emotional hunger, you must be satisfied in that instant. Again, it comes on very quickly, and it's something that you feel as an urge. With physical hunger, your needs could wait. I could eat right now. I could wait an hour and I'd be just fine. With emotional hunger, you crave very specific comfort foods. For some of us, that might mean salty, crunchy snack foods, or that might mean sweet type foods. But again, it's a very specific craving in a specific emotional or stressed state. With physical hunger, many different foods sound good to you, and you could choose from a variety of different options in that situation. With emotional hunger, you tend to eat very quickly, oftentimes in private, and it can even be something that you might be embarrassed about. With physical hunger, you take your time eating. Hopefully you're eating with good company. With emotional hunger, you're not satisfied at all with a full stomach. It's all about your stress and your emotional needs, not about those physical needs. But with physical hunger, you can stop eating when you're full. With emotional hunger, after eating, you may have feelings of shame or guilt or feeling defeated or powerlessness. But with physical hunger, after eating, you don't have any of these negative feelings typically. Okay, so that concludes part 1 of our discussion on mindful eating. In part 2, we'll start off with utilizing how we might utilize mindful eating strategies to have better control over stressful and emotional type eating.